What's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com, and today we're going to be going over a Currensy style track. What's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com. Today, I was just, from time to time, I'll go and check out a couple different, sample blogs and different blogs where guys will rip vinyls. And one of the more popular ones, if y'all don't know about this one, this should definitely be up in your favorites. You see, that shit's my first favorite. And this is called The Vinyl Frontier. It's at Blogspot. And whenever dude drops this highly recommended title on something, I mean, you could just you could pretty much know that there's beats to be made off it. So, I seen this and it was like the birth and death of a gangster. Yeah, that's begging to get sampled. So I went through and I started listening to a bunch of the tracks, and it's like a small EP, but there was I was just getting the vibe of that Currensy shit just came out, and I was just like, man, this is where I would go with it. And I haven't done a tutorial that sounds like this before, so I figured it'd be something different for y'all. So this is what we'll be making. Say you could definitely envision Spitter on something like that. His whole type of vibe, if you were following for a while, not so much the early stuff, but it's more like laid back, groovy type of samples. And the thing that really makes these tracks different is they'll use either a sampled live played bass line or lay a played bass line, or program a bass line on top of it. So that's pretty much what we're going to be focusing on. It's just getting the sample, finding programming the slick bass line, and just the real bouncy drums. First, I want to give a shout out to my man Chris Walker for coming through with the Auto-Tune 8.1. man, I was I was humbled and blessed by that. I appreciate you. And I also want to give a shout out to my boys Hit, the Real Hit, and Ave out in Delaware, that been fucking with me on some mixing and mastering and production. And these guys, like, they got some real serious music. Y'all want to look out for that. But to get into this track, the way that I found the sample, I have a couple different ways, that I'll sample different types of vibes. It's very rare that, like, the way that I sample, because I'm so used to dealing with the piano roll, is that it'll be very rare that I'll go in and chop something up like an MPC or something like that. It's that's just, my mind doesn't work like that. I've never been like the type of producer to want to go ahead and rearrange the song and play different chops and shit like that. I could do it, but I'm more like, as you can see, the way that it's laid out, I chopped it up and looped it like it was a regular virtual instrument. That's what's easy for me. So in order for me to have that workflow, what I'll do is I'll set up a what do I keep doing this thing? I'll go ahead and set up the sample inside of sample one and go to the beginning, and just the first thing you want to do is just get rid of the silence in the beginning of the sample, right? And then I'll play it in different octaves to try to get a sound first. See, so I like that. So all I did was I went ahead and I programmed, a long note of it. I went ahead and programmed it on, on the piano roll, and then you just press Control B. When you have it highlighted, press Control B, and it'll bounce that out to a, to a regular waveform. And then, this makes it easy to to go ahead and do your time stretching and everything like that, because then you don't got to worry about syncing it up with the beat, trying to dial in on the exact BPM, because a lot of these older songs that were played with live musicians is not exact to a click. So I could just take this sample now, so I know that my loop is going to be right about here. Right. And I knew that I wanted my project tempo at 136. So I just go ahead and hold down Alt and then drag the bottom half. You'll know when you see that little clock at the bottom that you're time stretching. And then we just go ahead and listen to that. Alright, boom, perfect loop, nothing to it. So once I have that, and I know like a lot of people who like to sample, like the whole reason why they chop is to add different variations to it. But as you'll see, in my arrangement, I choose to add different variations through putting effects, dropping out drums, adding things, and things of that nature. So the first thing we had is that sample loop. Now by itself you got this. All right, it's a lot of frequency. So the first thing I went ahead and did is I rolled off a bunch of the lows to get rid of that bass, because I want to put my own bass line on it. And I got rid of rolled off some of the highs because I wanted to get rid of the hi-hat percussion. And then I boosted around 2K to get the to get the guitar more prominent. Alright, then I went ahead and I noticed that the guitar melody part was really hard panned to the right. A lot of these older tracks, they use extreme stereo panning. So I got out this binaural pan and I closed the width like down to 32%. So you'll notice the difference without it. See how much is on the right side? With this plugin, you close the width. This plugin right here is like one of my favorite plugins in Studio One. Just little things. You'll see stuff like this, if you don't really know what you're working with, and you'll be like, oh, what is this for? Why would I ever use it? It's just two knobs. This is stupid. And it's like one of the most powerful audio manipulating plugins in Studio One. The next thing I did was I added this this twang reverb. I've been using this a lot on my tracks lately. I just like the way the vibrato. You have a vibrato and you have a reverb, and you have this little EQ right here. Then it's just I don't know. It's easy to make something sound cool. So I was just messing around with it, and I turned the vibrato on and I soaked in a little bit more reverb. Just added some more movement to the sample, which is always a good thing. So once I had the sample going, I went ahead, and laid this snare pattern. Now, I didn't want to go with like a straight up trap snare, and I didn't want a straight up acoustic snare. This Ultimate kit that Superstar O put out, like it's a really good like all around bread and butter kit. You can find pretty much any type of sound. The original sample of this was a little too high, so I just lowered it down one step on the piano roll, and it wound up working really nice. With the sample and everything. And that's another thing that you want to pay attention to when you're doing your drums. If you get if you're looking for a sound and you think it's not fitting, just bump it up one or two steps, or down one or two steps on the piano roll, and you might find that the drum is just out of tune with what you got going on. For the kick, I just laid this is a really simple rhythm, but it always seems to sound good on these more like laid back down south type tracks. It's just you hear the kick and the snare, and they have a really good back and forth between each other, and that really solidifies the groove. The next thing that I did to kind of give it like this stomping quality is I went ahead and I put these crashes in on on every other beat, so it's just kind of like ka, ka. But I tucked them mix wise. I tucked them up underneath, so that it wasn't obnoxious, like a crazy trap beat. So something mellow just to kind of complement the sample. A lot of the times when you chop samples, it'll have that type of percussion in it, and that's really what I wanted to go for, was just to kind of make it sound a little bit more choppy without actually chopping it. So that's a technique you could always use to give it kind of that stop and go feel. The next piece of percussion I added was the open hat. And I chose to go with a more acoustic sounding open hat just because of the sample. We could have went ahead and did the regular 808 noise hi-hat. I had that in there in the beginning. It sounded fine, but once I put this sample in, I don't know, everything just felt a little bit better. Sometimes you gotta listen and feel, when you're selecting your sounds, and just don't really trust trends. Just trust your feeling. The next thing that I added was this hi-hat. And this pattern is I used 32 notes and 8 notes to kind of get that vibe. And if you notice, a lot of it is either on the downbeat or off in the second beat, and that's just kind of give it like this kind of pickup feel, because I was trying to get more of a bouncy thing than kind of like an aggressive straight hat, like just, blazing through the track. This is more like when you hear Currensy spit, he's more of a he goes in and out of the beat. He's not, his flow isn't really abrasive. It's more of like for lack of a better word, it's more of like a wavy thing, almost like a psychedelic feel to it sometimes. So if you were gonna try to make a track for Currensy, or someone who sounds like him, you wouldn't want to have just the basic South hi-hats going through it. This is just, I stayed away from the triplets because this is more of just a just kind of a flip on a traditional Southern hi-hat roll. Then when you have an open and closed hi-hat, remember, if you want to actually hear them, go ahead and pan them hard to each side, so that you can so that they have space. There's only so much stuff you could hear up in that high frequency range, and if you separate it from one for one speaker, one to the other, that's gonna really help your mix out a little bit. The next thing that I added to tie it all together was this bass line right here. Now, the way that I came up with this, this is like different from all my other 808 stuff, and if you're the type of producer that only does 808 bass lines and stuff like that, you should try getting a bass guitar simulated VST, something like from Contact or something like that, and give it a try, because you can have a lot of fun, making these groovy little bass lines. The way I came up with it is I'm just listening to the track, just paying attention to the kick. I just kind of closed my eyes and started going doom 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 doom. So as I'm going, as I'm like horribly singing that bass melody, I'm watching the timeline go, what I'm saying, because I'm not playing that. I'm not dope like that. But fake it till you make it, bro. So as I'm going doom, I'm paying attention to where, as I go doom doom doom, I'm paying attention to where my pitch is changing as the timeline is moving on. And what I did was I clicked out this bass line. I just clicked it out like this, right? This is what it originally looked like. So I knew that it was, I worked on the timing first, okay? So it was okay, so because I would have never known how to draw out this I had to pay attention to it. And then I know, like, my boy plays all different types of instruments, and I've asked him about bass guitars and getting them to sound more realistic. And one of the things that he's always told me is like, yo, like when you program a bass guitar and you go up, just remember most bass players like to move in fifths. It's comfortable for their hands, so you won't sound weird if you do that. So I was like, all right, so I'll go from my 1 note to my 2 note to my 3 note to my 4 note to my 5th. So I worked and I'm listening. So I get this. Sorry. So I knew that I wanted to go doom 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 doom. So when I'm singing it, I'm like doom 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 doom. All right, so I notice I'm going down after the 3rd note. Right, so I just start like kind of walking it down, And then I knew that I wanted to do the do 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 do. So that whenever you're like humming out a bass line and you do that do 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 do, that's just think of it as a bass player, walking his finger up the notes, and it's either a walk up or a walk down, and that's easy because you walk up and you walk downstairs. So once you get your timing notes down, then you just draw some stairs, and you might not always be right, on the first time you try to separate the notes, but you just listen to what you have, and if it sounds good, it sounds good. All right, so then I knew that I didn't want to go do no 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 no. I wanted to go do 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 do. So I take this last note, I bring it down. And that's how you take an idea for like a bass line or a melody that's in your head and throw it on the piano roll. You know what I mean? You just got to pay attention, pay attention to the timing, get the timing of the notes down. Once you get the timing of the notes down in a straight line, then pay attention to what you're humming. Are you going down or are you going up? And then you just pay attention to that. Okay, I went up here, I went down here. And then you just play it back and listen, and does it sound like it does in your head? And if it doesn't, ask yourself, okay, well, was this note too high or too low? And then just bump it up one or two, bump it down one or two until you hear what you heard in your head. And once you start doing that, you'll really have some fun. The next thing that I did was, I'm listening to this. And I'm just thinking about the Currensy songs I know, and I'm like, man, that guy, he's always picks these tracks that have these cool, that have either the vocals built into it, or there's little vocal stabs in it. So I wanted to look for a vocal stab, and the thing was, I didn't like the vocals that were in this song. They weren't really they just weren't they weren't doing anything for me. So what I did was I got another song from the same exact from the same album or EP or whatever. And I just went through, and I was just looking for, I just wanted a section that had a big just like a big stab with a bunch of people singing. So I'm listening. So I like that. I liked it when everybody was harmonizing on words right here. Yeah, that was to me, that was very funky. And so I just went ahead, and cut it and put a fade on it. That way all the music wouldn't carry over, and I bumped it up into the track. Where are we at? But one thing that I did do, I didn't bother like going into Melodyne or trying to figure out the scale of that song. Like sometimes I'll just be God, my dog's going hammer time. Sometimes I'll just be kind of lazy. So seeing as I got this new auto tune, I was like, let me just auto tune, because it's just there's not a lot of instruments in the background. It's more of the vocal that I'm trying to get. So I just straight up auto tuned it, and I auto tuned it like super ratchet, where I just turned the retune speed way up. I turned all the vibrato stuff down. And it just made it sound a little bit cooler in that way, because I'm like super paranoid about playing stuff out of key. To this day, I have a complex about that, just because I don't know. I think I was like in like music class in 5th grade, and my I had a real bitchy music teacher, and she was like, "You're tone deaf." Which was like a complete lie. I just didn't like playing the fucking recorder. You know what I mean? Who the hell likes playing the recorder, So I tried to get out of it. But I didn't try to get out of it. I just wasn't good at it. And she's like, yeah, you got to be tone deaf. You shouldn't be playing instruments. I'm like, so I had a thing with I don't, I guess I must be tone deaf for like the longest time. So I use little crutches like that, little side note to Mind a Zebra. So anyway, once I have that, that's pretty much the loop right there. In this section right here, I went ahead and I went to my filter bus. Check out my template, my mix template tutorial if you don't know how to set up your buses the way that I do. And just make it easier on all of us. So what I did was I took this I put Effectrix on my filter bus, which has all of my non-drum related stuff to it. Actually, no, it's got the drums and the band filter to it. And I just went ahead and I put a filter, this vowel filter on it, and I threw this phaser on it, and it really it just broke up the monotony of the track. Just something cool, something to add a trippy little element to it. This track, the way that I arranged it is, we're in double time, so this, where I'm at this 9 bar, this is really like 4 bars, the way that a rapper would count it. So I've got 4, 8, 12, 16, I've got 2 verses here, and then what I was thinking of, after they got done with their little 16 bars or whatever, you'd go into this trippy phaser part, you could talk shit or get a singer, or do something different, put a sample, and then go back into the rapping. That was my whole mind state as far as the arrangement of it, because if you look at it, it isn't a basic arrangement, but it's still simple. You keep it simple, but you don't be basic. So yeah, you can do this. You could do this in any of your songs where you give the rapper 2/16, and you just do something different with it, with a bus effect, for the chorus. And it's especially if they're drug rappers, or they like to do more creative and bugged out type of shit. They'll appreciate stuff like this. It gives it a different texture, and it gives the song room to breathe. But anyway, that's it for this tutorial. This is Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions. Keep it simple, don't be basic, and we'll see you on the next one.